Hello and welcome back. I'll be attempting to do some lampworking outside today, here on the Jasa channel. I'll start off by attaching this smaller rod of green stardust to a larger clear rod. And this would be a hot sealed punty, which is sort of like a glass handle. So for this episode, I thought since I'm working outside and keeping things more natural, I thought I would keep the pace of the editing a little more natural too. And so there'll be less cuts and real-time speed. This is a GTT Bobcat. It's very similar to the center fire of my larger torch, the Bethlehem Bravo. And so I'm going to be attempting a simpler project today. It's pretty well suited for this smaller torch. I'm not sure what they're called. They're little glass tokens. You can use them in Magic the Gathering. As a card game I used to play when I was younger. I still have my cards all the way back from the early 90s. We used to go to the craft section of the store and get a packet of glass stones to use for the game. And I thought it was pretty cool to have glass tokens for the game, but honestly they weren't the best tokens. You could tell they were mass produced. They were all very ripply on the bottom from the forming process. You can tell they didn't take the time to smooth it out. And that's one of the big differences we try to achieve with our custom lampworking. Very unique, kind of one-of-a-kind pieces without those tool marks and small flaws you get from a mass-produced kind of product. And so I'm gathering the glass into a small sphere. This is the first steps to creating a marble. And so with the video in a natural real-time pace, you can really see how slow the process can be at times. Glass is more of a thermal insulator, which means it doesn't conduct heat very well. So it takes a lot of time to get it liquidy molten. And now I'm going to go ahead and attach a cold punty to the top of the token. I'll heat both sides up a little bit, take it out of the flame, and then give it a quick attachment. This colder attachment makes it easier to break off later and leaves behind less clear glass. I'll melt off the green rod and start to work the bottom of the token to flatten it out. And so this was around 7 in the morning. I got started pretty early today while it was still dark out. I don't melt glass outside very often, but I do enjoy it when I do. I'm a fan of nature and the outdoors, and so I thought I would go with this nice scenic shot of the trees and the sky. And I'll hold the rod at a downward angle, and gravity will begin to slump the back of the token flat. I'm having some trouble getting my punty angled down anymore. The torch itself doesn't want to angle up. Apply a lot of heat here and begin to marver the back of it flat with a graphite paddle. And then I'll go back in to where I pressed it and melt out those marver marks that I was talking about earlier. I want it completely flat like a mirror or a window. I'm going to pay very strict attention to detail here. I know what you're thinking. You could probably apply some quicker techniques. Maybe a small marble mold and a tile snips. But I'm not really focusing on my pace overall, just more the quality of the item. I'm just kind of experimenting with the colors right now. Once I get more of a finalized idea, then I can focus on the processing steps and make it a bit more efficient. I'm melting out the last punty mark now, and this green one will be done. We'll be moving over to blue stardust, a sparkly cobalt blue. You can see the sun begin to rise in the top right corner of the screen behind the trees. I found that there's some advantages and disadvantages to working outside. There isn't a need for a ventilation system like there would be for an enclosed space indoors. However, the downside is that the wind keeps hitting the torch and moving my flame around a little bit. It just doesn't feel as steady as my torch indoors. The next benefit would be the natural lighting outside. There's less of a need to worry about shop lighting since you have natural lighting coming at you, which can also be a downfall, especially in direct sunlight. Not only does it make things a little hotter than normal, it actually makes it quite difficult to see the flame. I would think you'd almost need some kind of canopy or some kind of shade. But beyond that, I really do enjoy it. One of these days, I plan to do some lamp working outside for a live audience. That would be pretty cool. And so overall, it definitely is possible to set up a little studio outside. It could be a little bit quicker, possibly even mobile, by using the natural elements. But by the same token, that might give you some problems too, like rain and such. Let me know down in the comment section how you're liking this outdoors episode so far. It's a little different of a format than my normal episodes. I've been wanting to try to vary the content a little bit. I've talked before about doing some gaming videos. I've been wanting to do that, but I was also thinking how to incorporate lampworking a little bit into it. I know it sounds a little weird, but we'll just see how it goes. And not to brag, but I am a pretty proficient player as well, so it should be a good show. But back to this show, I have an almost round blue marble here. The next step for a marble would be to break the punty and change the axis that it's attached. And this way you can begin to round it down from a different angle. I have a couple good marble videos already. You should check out my video on the vortex marble if you're interested more in the marbling process. Alright, so I'm just going to work out those last tool marks, and this little blue token will be done. And I know it looks like a long and slow process, but this little glass stone is going to last forever. It is glass, but it's a very hard glass. It's also very small and very lightweight. And so if it does fall, there won't be as much force to shatter the surface of the glass. The same thing applies to tubing. The thicker walled tubing is more durable, but in the case of falling, it might have a harder impact when it hits the ground. And speaking of tubing, I'll be moving over to a 12mm heavy wall tubing. I'm going to flame cut this tube in half and blow out the bottoms a little bit to make round bottom tubes. This is one of the first things I ever made on a torch, a simple round bottom tube. However, I'll be filling these tubes with frit to make more decorative tokens. This technique is very similar to my last episode, the glass spinning tops. I was actually a bit nervous attempting the spinning top. I know it's a very iconic item. I didn't want to mess it up. However, the results were a little bit better than I anticipated. They worked really well. I'm considering making them to sell. I don't have the online store up yet. I'm a little nervous about that also. And so what I'm doing here is adding little bits of frit. I'm going back and forth between a copper red and clear. Frit is crushed glass, a little bit similar to sand. This leaves me with a striped pattern of frit in the tube. And it may not look exactly like that as it melts in. It'll be more of a swirls of color and clear. I want to start on the end and slowly work my way back. The air likes to expand as it heats up, and so this will push the air out of the tube as I'm working backward. One of the difficult parts of this technique is I need to make sure not to tilt the tube too far upward, where the frit will start to tumble back down the tube. Filling the tube up with more frit may help, but as I'm experimenting with the different colors, I want to use a little bit at a time. I found the transparent reactive frits to work pretty well, the ones with silver especially. Dragon's Eye and Aquatic Carnival gave me some nice blue fume. And now it's starting to slump over a little bit from gravity. I'm going to go ahead and add a punty to the other side and try to melt in a little bit more before I dump the rest of the frit out. You can see the sun is continuing to rise in the top right over the tree line. There was a little bit of an overcast, so it wasn't that clear. And on top of that, the camera's focused more towards the torch, so something off in the distance like that will come in a little blurrier. I also have my new Zelda shirt on today. This was a recent birthday gift from my little niece. And now you can wish me a happy birthday by clicking the like button or sharing this channel on your favorite social feed. Get your friends and family into the world of glass. I do appreciate your support. You can also leave any suggestions for a future video in the comment section. One of the next projects will be from a viewer suggestion, which is an ink writing pen. The old style with the inkwell and feather quill. And then I'll just need some parchment paper and I'll be ready to go. I had to order some ink for the project. It was kind of funny because I kept finding some very fancy glass bottle inkwells. And I was thinking to myself, that's kind of my job to make the fancy inkwell. Where's just the ordinary plastic bottle that says ink on it? And so that should be a pretty cool project. And then after that, I'm thinking about an experiment on gallium. We'll be looking a little bit at thermodynamics. That should be a pretty hot project. So those are two great reasons to subscribe if you haven't already, so you don't miss out. And so I've almost gathered that section up into a small marble. It's a little bit large for one token, so I'm thinking I might have to pull it out and divide it into two. It's normal to remove just a little bit at the end of your rods, just in case there's a little bit of dirt or contaminants trapped there. Otherwise, you'll be transferring that defect to your finished work. And those defects will sometimes lead to even more defects in the surrounding area, kind of like a catalyst. But they kind of sit on the surface of the glass, so when you remove it, maybe swipe it off with a rod, you're only swiping off that surface layer. But now I'm going to begin to heat up this entire gather, try to get it to a more liquidy consistency, almost like a very thick honey. And then slowly pull it out into a small rod. And now for a copper red, it looks very clear right now. And that's because it's a striking color. As you heat these striking colors up to working temperature and let them cool down, they begin to transition to a new color. And so if you keep repeatedly striking this red color, it would get darker and darker until it becomes almost opaque. You can strike in the kiln also in case you want to try to develop the color a little bit more, which is something I forgot to mention about working outdoors. My kiln is back at my shop. I didn't bring it with me. That's something to keep in mind in case you're planning to work outside. You can sometimes get away with doing some smaller items like these without the kiln. But besides that, maybe just use a simple setup like this for practice. And now lampworking may not be the most versatile skill, but I definitely feel there's some benefit to practicing it. Sort of like picking up a musical instrument. It helps you kind of hone your senses while giving you an outlet for your creativity. And like a musical instrument, it may help benefit you later in life in some kind of activity that might need some more precise detail on your part. But speaking of musical instruments, I've been practicing my guitar a little bit more lately. I've been trying to make up some little riffs for the end of the videos. And so I have two sections here, both on punties. I'm going to melt them both into marbles and flatten them out into tokens. You can see it's already getting into that marble-like shape. It really doesn't take as much time once you have the heat into it, but to build that heat from room temperature takes a long time. And I'm trying not to push too much while I flatten it, or it might start to indent the top side. So I built this bench over 2 years ago. I made a small video about it and did a few marbles in that video. So this one's going to be a little different with these tokens. The only thing I do regret is not painting it or weatherproofing it. And so I'm going to finish up this last punty mark on the top, and I think I'm going to conclude it for the video here. It's been some nice scenic footage for this video. The sun has almost breached the top of the trees there, and we have some beautiful tokens here to complete the day. You can see a lot of sparkle in the green and blue ones, and I've had some interesting results from the reactive frits. Here's an amber purple, and then a couple silvered green colors, aquatic carnival and dragon's eye. And then fade to black gave me some black tokens with a stripe of whitish blue. And that's going to do it for this video. I hope you enjoyed the scenic view, and thanks for joining me here on the Jasa channel.